Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the first in a series of webinars that we're running on the importance and challenges of speed in today's B2B telco environment. I'm sure many of you have asked the question of some area of your end-to-end sales cycle, can't we do this faster? That's what we explore in this webinar series, and in the first episode, we shine a spotlight on the quoting process. We'll be taking questions from the audience at the end of the webinar, so feel free to post any queries you have by clicking on the Q&A icon, which you should find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So let me introduce you to our presenter for this webinar, Vish Kumar, CloudSense's VP of Industry Solutions. So Vish has extensive experience in the telecommunications industry, having worked as a GM for credit fraud and payments at Telstra, as well as 12 years in various roles at Optus. Throughout his career, he has worked across the full spectrum of telecommunications, including with VNOs, wholesale, SMBs, B2B, and B2C areas. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Vish Kumar. Take it away, Vish.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you everyone for making the time wherever you are in the world today. So as Ed mentioned, today we're going to talk about some of the key things that we see in the quoting space and just really focusing around what are the challenges that most of the carriers that I work with today are facing in the market. So especially around, how do they actually impact their customers they're working with? The general impact around what does it mean for your customer experience, and how is it really impacting that overall sales life cycle, and then the overall life cycle with the particular customer you're working with. We'll go through some of the common causes that are inside most carriers today. You're not unique, especially the B2B spaces around what is the technology you're using and what are some of the barriers you're facing with it. The process side of things, process is a huge thing that a lot of carriers really struggle with to really optimize and make the most out of it. But then also people and culture. People and culture make the bone of what we do, and making sure that everything we do is really, really successful, especially for your customers, but then also for your business. But there is a way forward, and how do you get it that really happy medium balance? So there's both business outcomes, people outcomes, and then what's a good result for you and your customers going forward. And we'll touch on some things around process and people, but then also how do we use technology as a tool as opposed to the savior for everything we talk about and everything we work with today. So let's look at our customers. They're the heart of everything we do. Many carriers I work with today really don't appreciate that quoting process. They really don't understand what impact that does have to the overall experience that you'd be providing your customers. Funny enough, it is actually one of the most important times when the customer is actually evaluating how they're going to be with you going forward. Because as we know, time, it kills almost every deal. But we've also got to make sure this overall quoting period and this quoting process is really simple and our customers can understand what we're going through. It's a really important phase in terms of understanding your customer, understanding, have you listened through that whole process of understanding what their challenges are? What are their real drivers in terms of their business and the outcomes they want to get to? But then also, have you articulated a solution that solves their business needs for today, but then also their business needs for tomorrow and going forward, all while trying to keep that within a budget they've talked to you about or may not have, but knowing full well that they're also evaluating other carriers. They're also looking at you in terms of, can I trust you going forward? So when something does go wrong, how quickly are you going to come back to me? How quickly are you going to respond? And are you really going to treat me as a priority going forward? So when we look at most of the carriers and we look at what are some of their challenges that they're faced with, it's very different to what it used to be 3, 4, 5 years ago. Time, we know time kills everything. And going back to the customer with half a proposal and not a full one, or even going back to them with I'll call it an excuse or a notion to say, we're still working on something, but this is where we're at. The challenge for them is they're expecting, and they're living in a digital age. We all are. They're expecting something to come back within a matter of minutes, hours, even days at the most. When we take weeks or months, then we know there's a problem. Now, there's obviously a bit of give and take when it comes down to the complexity and the size of the deals we're working through. But generally, for the ones where they're really asking for a quote with a couple of sites or even a couple of hundred mobiles, they're expecting these to come back pretty quickly because some of your competitors are doing the same thing quite easily. Smaller competitors now really take a play in the market, especially when we start dealing with the SD-WAN security space, where they can really offer a tailored solution without any issues. They can also differentiate themselves in very different ways around personalized services. This really takes away from how we're quoting and being responsive to the customer in a very meaningful way, and makes it ever more important to make sure that when we do give them a quote, it's actually tailored to their requirements and not a generic one, which we would normally just send out just quickly and easily. They're also looking now to unbundle things. So as time goes on, they're also looking to say, well, I can get this from one place and something else for another. So where carriers used to have a really big advantage was the ability to sell everything under the one umbrella and bundle it all together and provide that one service to customers. It's still extremely attractive, but if we're too slow to the mark, we can't make it on time. We end up losing parts of the wallet share to other parts of or our other competitors that we're working with in the market. We're also challenged with, I'd call it technology, but some of our processes where a lot of carriers today are talking to me about, well, how do I get everything on the one document, Vish? We have a process today where one department does one bit and we have another department that does another. And then we try and pull that together, but we end up with maybe 4 different proposals, but they're 4 different business units, so it's okay. But we understand that customers are challenged with that because they don't know what is that final monthly price or what is my ongoing cost or total cost that I've got to pay for this. It's also a challenge when it comes down to the sales rep having to then pull that together in a separate PowerPoint document to then present that to the customer. It becomes very, very unprofessional, but then also very disjointed around where the company brand is and how it's being used in the market. As we move into the world of marketplaces and third parties, it becomes a bigger challenge when we've got to work with some of these third parties to give us the quotes quickly. It's something that you can't control, but it's also something you need to work with to make sure that we get our pricing done and making sure that we're in the market in a very clean and succinct way, but can present things really easily. So what's really the impact if we don't really give a customer a really good experience? Naturally, we'll lose the deal. If we can't respond quickly enough, they're not going to trust us. They're basically going to look at you and say, they don't really want my business. Otherwise, I get it quite quickly. And if you're quoting something to say, I'll head it back to you next week and you can't, you've basically lost the trust. There's the expectation of service around all of this. So in this new digital world, a lot of our customers are expecting things to happen quickly and easily, but they're also expecting things to come through really, really simply. They don't want a very detailed level of complexity within the quote, but they want it relevant to themselves. They're using this as a benchmark of how you're going to service them. Loss of wallet share is a really big one. So a lot of customers will then basically start going, well, I needed 50 iPhones today or this week. It turns out you can't get it to me, so I've gone somewhere else. But we are still looking for that data solution, the cloud solution, and those security things. Can you give me a proposal on those now, but not the mobiles because we've gone somewhere else that could do it quicker? People move, and it's a really big thing. So once you've worked with one company, they may move to another. By giving a poor experience to one person doesn't mean, okay, fine, we're okay, we can move on. There does become a perception in that market should that person move to the next company. If they appear there and you're working with them again, they already have a perception that they've cast across everyone. It's a risk. It's something that we have to be aware of, but it is something that can happen, and it becomes extremely important that we need to worry about to say that how do we actually support people in these situations and making sure that our brand both personally and as a company, doesn't get tarnished on the way through. And at the end of it all, what it does impact us, it impacts us as a company significantly. As a carrier, we rely on our pipeline. We rely on our pipeline growth. We rely on it succeeding. And to do that, we need more deals in the pipeline. We need more proposals. By making our proposals and our quotes a lot slower, it means then we reduce the number of deals that we can actually close. We reduce the timings of, we basically increase the timing of them. So it means our revenue turn on is now a lot longer than what it should be. And at times we'll actually see that pipeline shrink because time will kill all deals. So we know time kills all deals, but what about the operational side of things? There are some barriers that we do need to look at internally to really understand how do we speed up this quoting process. So the biggest one that I talk to a lot of customers about every week is about your processes on how are you putting things together to create a process that enables you to get back to the customer really quickly. And it's as simple as ensuring that you've had a look at your end-to-end process of what's required to make sure that your quotes are accurate, to make sure that your sales reps are empowered to make some key things and key decisions. But then what does your approval process look like? And also, what does your general quoting process end-to-end look like? Does it allow you to be able to quote the customer quickly? Should they want a budgetary quote where they don't want a full SQ or site qualification, a feasibility study? They just want to know how much is that particular link with that particular bandwidth. Or they want to know how much a particular device or a particular configuration would cost. Do you have that ability to provide the customer a quote? Now, some of the processes a lot of salespeople will work around. They will work it out and say, well, I've got the Excel spreadsheet, all the list prices. I'll just text that to the customer, or I might just shoot them an email. The challenges with those processes is you now don't have a traceable record of what's being sent to the customer, when it's been sent, and how many times have we sent the same thing, and what are they really doing in terms of that life cycle journey. A lot of customers talk to me about the complexity of what they're selling as well, and the pricing side of things to make sure that we put them together and we sell them and we do them at a profitable space. There are different ways of doing that within the process, but also ensuring that only the key things go to your different departments. So whether it needs to be commercially reviewed or technically reviewed, there are certain ways we can look at optimizing those processes and reducing the time within those engine rooms, which are doing some great work and important work. But how do we make that really, really focused on only the key ones, not everything? Technology is one of the biggest topics that I'm naturally involved in. How do we get away from using Excel is probably the number one question I get asked. But the other is also, I have so many different systems that my sales reps have to work with before they can even get to a point where they can generate a quote. Technology is always going to be a challenge depending on where you are and how you're working with things. What we need to look at is how do we convert it into a tool and making sure that we understand what we can use it for. There are levels of manual things that we have to look at. So emails become key, making sure that we look at how do we incorporate the technology within our processes. But the barriers around the technology are the simple things of what touch points do they fit in within that process? How do we allow the technology to do what the technology needs to do? But then also ensuring that we understand how do we really optimize the technology for what we want to do today and where we need to get to tomorrow. The other key thing to look at is also the people and culture. Salespeople and most people like doing what they're already doing. They're used to it. They've been doing it for such a long time. But one of the key things I hear back working with salespeople directly and also any other operational people is I really don't like the fact that I have to double handle this data. I don't want to have to key it into the Excel spreadsheet and then rekey it into my CRM and then into another PowerPoint to then push that out to a customer. I also don't like the fact that I've got to get all these people to approve them in different templates where I've just keyed in the same amount of data. So the frustration in the people side becomes really, really big, and we start seeing corners being cut. We start seeing the reuse of certain templates. We start seeing a level of transparency around the salespeople, but not so much within the other departments around what trends are happening and what's not happening. The other around the transparency side of things is in the people and culture side is people don't like sharing or providing complete details of where they're up to in the whole fear of failing or being late or being wrong. So what we do end up is in a situation where we have surprise deals, which are great. It means we're hitting our numbers, etc. But they do have downstream impacts in terms of how are you forecasting for some key parts of your operational business? Do we really have enough resources to deliver over a Christmas period? How do we work through some key things with different people in terms of resources around, do we have enough inventory and stock? All of those things can become challenges if we don't have clear transparency and visibility within the technology, the processes, and also ensuring our people feel comfortable about using those things. So there does have to be a better way. Forecasts are hard. We know that. And they are, we work in a very dynamic and a very challenging market right now. A lot of companies and a lot of people are asking for a level of visibility. It's not just around the sales pipeline and making sure I can see what's coming and what's not, but it's also knowing how do I plan for my business end to end? How do I plan for the stock? How do I plan for what I need to do over the next 6 months and in terms of what I need to focus on? It's also understanding what's working in the market and what's not. So people and culture are very, very key to your success. So ensuring that your people are signing up to that customer experience side of things. The quoting side of things becomes extremely important because it's the first time the customer gets to see you for who you are and what you're doing. They also get to see you in terms of how do you really rally around them to make sure that you're providing them the best solution for them day one, but also in a timely manner and in a manner that's actually suitable to their business. As I said before, we're working in a very different environment where now everything is a here and now, and it has to be digital. We also need to know that our salespeople that we're working with and the customers that are buying from are empowered to make certain decisions and certain changes quickly. So one of the biggest challenges that we do see in the people and culture side is around the empowerment space. Now, it's not empowerment in terms of saying, here, you give the sales rep all the discounts that they can have, but it is giving them a level of empowerment on transparency, but then also around what they can and can't do to negotiate a better deal with the customer, knowing that they're getting a good deal and you're getting a good deal. As a sales rep, their number one challenge is they don't want to have to keep coming back to the commercial team or to the technical team around the solution. We do know customers will make changes. We do also know that there's different things that they want to do. What we don't want is for them to continually having to come back into the business and follow that process of a request goes in, we then have to wait a 3-day service level agreement for the commercial team to come back with a response. We need a level of saying, well, these are the things that you can actually approve, and these are the things where you need to come back to the commercial team. And part of that empowerment also enables the sales rep or whoever's working with the customer to have a level of comfort and give the customer a level of comfort and saying, this is where we're at. These are the timelines I need before I can get you something to be competitive or to make sure that we win your business. There's no deal is ever the same. There's no deal that's cut in the same way. And there's no solution that's exactly the same. And that most customers understand that, but it's about how do we really empower our sales reps to be confident with the notion of what they're actually asking their customer to go through or wait for. The other is also around your common goals across your business. So ensuring that all the people involved in that quoting process are signing up to the same thing. So whilst I'm not saying that we want, everyone to be dropping everything to focus on one deal or all the deals, it's about in that process and the culture side, ensuring that the service level agreements you're setting up with your sales reps are met. You're focusing on what is a good win-win situation and providing a level of transparency for it. So the common goals do go both ways. It's not about just dropping your price so you're not profitable. It's about making sure that your team understands that for us to do this deal, you will need to take up X, Y, and Z so we can offset the costs. For that solution to work, we need to make sure that 80% of our of those solutions are actually on net as opposed to using third-party carriers or third-party suppliers. That level of transparency and culture sets up a set of goals that you guys can work through to make sure that all sides of the fence are actually pulling together to give the customer the best experience, but then also the best solution that's suitable for them. Technology. Now, technology is a really, really big one. I often get asked, well, this CloudSense has a CPQ. You should be able to solve our quoting side of things really quickly and easily. It shouldn't be that hard to make sure that we get this right and we can do this properly. You're right. CloudSense does have a CPQ and it does work really well. But the technology is a tool. The technology works really, really well when we have our processes set. So one of the key things that I do work with a lot of customers on is around that process side of things, about simplification of those processes, but using the technology as the real vehicle to automate, using it as a vehicle to take on all those heavy lifting tasks that we really know will take up a lot of time, but also simplify the process end to end. So in that quoting process, we'll look at a level of automation around some of those really big manual tasks that you could be going through. So they could be as simple as service qualifications, depending on the type of carrier you are, and also depending on the type of technology you have in terms of interrogating your network about what is available and what's not. Because with that automation and with that particular part of that quoting process, that could take a sales rep or a solution consultant a week on their own to make sure there's 100 sites that have been verified to say they're on net or off net. Using technology to automate a lot of those, we now go from a week to now maybe a couple of hours where they're all batch loaded and the results are presented for the solution consultant or the sales rep to then start that configuration process in terms of what can go at each site. It all sounds very simple, but that automation is extremely important to making sure that that quote that goes to a customer is accurate, is on time, and also gives them a level of comfort of working with you. The other key areas around the automation pieces are around pricing, around automating those bundles that are available to the customer without the sales rep having to go through and click and configure things and looking at different spreadsheets to understand what offer is available when and where. It's important to know that when we look at those key automation things, that we look at the really big things and the common areas that we do see in the market that cost us, because they cost us at times when the customer's gone ahead with the deal and then we've realized we quoted the wrong thing and now we have to offset a load of credits to that customer, or even worse, have to use a set of billing rules or redo the bill every month because we need to re-rate them every month for something that we quoted wrong on. These are all operational barriers and all operational costs that we've run into that we really don't want to face because we haven't looked at the ways we can make these things accurate and automate as much as possible. When we look at the accuracy side of things, it's not just about pricing and about the location. It's about making sure the offers in market, even the customer name on the quote. It sounds really, really simple, but there's the amount of quotes I've looked at that have been manually done with spelling errors in the name, the wrong company details, or even the wrong contact name on the quote. That impression alone sets everything off, and the impression for the customer shows the level of professionalism that you take within your business and how you're actually running things going forward. And those little things make up some massive differences, especially in that quoting phase, to ensure that you're professional, on time, and you're actually differentiating yourselves with the customer. So we've covered a lot today. We've gone through, I guess, the terms of the key parts of the sales journey and how important the quoting component is for your customers. The customer experience in terms of how they're going to work with you and the impression is made is especially right at that quoting process. When you're going through that journey and ensuring that you're digesting what they've told you and you're being able to pull them a solution that's in their budget and be able to bring their whole dream to life over time is extremely important to them. And setting yourself up for success is most important by looking at your processes, your people, and then using the technology to make sure that you have those tools for your salespeople to give your customers the best experience possible. By doing this and ensuring you have all of this right allows you to ensure that your pipeline, your business, and your overall fulfillment has a level of visibility and reporting to allow you to plan correctly. The biggest challenges when we look at a lot of companies, especially when they look at their end-to-end, is the fact there's no clear line of sight from the pipeline right the way through to fulfillment, and understanding what are the key forecasts we need to look at all the way through that journey. So how many phones do I need to order? Where are we at with certain customers in their pipeline? And what are some of those levers that I really need to pull to either hit my number this quarter, but then also drive outcomes, especially in my delivery and our revenue turn on, to ensure that we're getting great NPS scores, great revenue numbers, but also ensuring our accuracy is great. So we're not putting pressure on our billing platforms and our service teams to do re-rating and sort out misquotes in the market. So at CloudSense, we've looked at this in a lot of detail. Over the last 10 years, we've worked with a lot of customers and we've worked with a lot of solutions. What we often get asked is around, Vish, can you tell us the best way of doing things and what are some of the key solutions you can use to help us get better at our quoting? So overall, what we created earlier this year and we launched this was called Telco One. So Telco One is an out-of-the-box solution that is a complete telco solution covered with processes end-to-end, but then also covering our quoting processes that are extremely common in the B2B market that will help you using technology as a tool, but also have those processes that are pre-built and configurable to suit your business and accelerate the way that you can give your customers the great experience that you really desire them to have. So in Telco One, we've built in 3 key areas that really help the accuracy and the automation that you want to give your customers in terms of quoting. So naturally, we have our true quoting and configuration engine, which many of you may see, but if you'd like to, we can organize a demo. But we've also got 3 other areas. So we have a concept called Quick Quote. Now, these quotes are extremely common that are usually done by the sales rep on the fly. The challenge with quick quotes today in most businesses when we talk to them is they have no traceability about when they were done or who did them or what was really sent to the customer or what was really asked. And that's because those quick quotes are either buried in text messages, they're buried in emails, or they've just been spoken about on the phone and no record's been kept in the CRM. So within CloudSense, what we've developed with Telco One is the ability to use the system to send out quick quotes, but without having to rekey all that data 3 times over. So right the way from your lead generation part in your process, as that customer or that prospect is still a lead, we can actually send them some quick quoting or budgetary quoting to give them guidance in terms of how much something may or may not cost. And that could be as simple as a link and an access and some devices. Giving the customer a gauge to say, well, working with this carrier, which is a premium carrier, you're going to be in this ballpark. your system and your CRM automatically have a record of that. The sales rep knows the date and time it was sent out. They know who it went to, and you can actually report on it, which is something you've never had before, as it's really, really important for your process. The other one is our really big challenges that we're seeing in the market when we look at really complex deals where we do need third parties, or we're working through large bill of materials which do come from our third party vendors. So being able to incorporate that into our overall quoting process means that now we're bringing everything together into that one quoting journey, which simply means that you don't need to have 5 or 6 different quotes going to the customer. You now have one quote which encapsulates all your connectivity products, but then also all of your hardware or CPE products in the one document. It also gives you the flexibility to work in with your internal processes and your internal teams to have full visibility of the deal that you're presenting to the customer. This means that your technical teams and your commercial teams can work on the same deal together simultaneously without having to make any issues with each other at all. One's looking at the commercials to make sure it's profitable and making sure that we can take it to market without any issues, and also present it to the customer, ensuring that this is the right deal for them based on the margins we have available. Whilst your solution consulting team is pulling that together and ensuring that the customer has the right cables, the right cards, and it's going to work with the particular network they're configuring for them. The other part is when we look at accuracy. So one of the key things that we look at, especially in the accuracy side, and it's a common one that I've faced even myself in my career in telco, is ensuring that I can actually deliver that technology at that site. And being able to ensure that I have the service qualification tools that are integrated. But then when I'm dealing with hundreds of sites, I'm also dealing with multiple addresses, and having them validated and making sure they're accurate is extremely important to any telco, especially when you're delivering fixed networks and data networks. So inside CloudSense, we've also built in an address management framework, which allows you to manage customers' addresses or sites and how and where you're going to be delivering key things for them. So whether that's just delivering mobiles, or we're actually looking at network infrastructure, the address management framework allows you to manage them quickly and easily. Now, inside that, we also support how integrations to your downstream systems to verify the data or the data networks that you support, and do some really in-depth service qualifications to ensure that the accuracy of what I can actually deliver at this particular customer site is actually achievable. Because we want to make sure that when we do quote the customer, we're talking to the customer about the solutions we can really offer them at that site with a level of confidence, knowing, okay, there are some things that are going to go wrong. We do know that, but we're 90% sure that we can give you this. The challenges we could face is we don't have enough fiber, etc. But those are the things the customer can understand, because all the other sites, you're pretty much right. We've only stumbled on maybe 1 or 2. If it's more than that, it's more than 50% of them we couldn't do anything with. And that's because we really didn't do our job properly, or we didn't have accurate data. And that's when we get credibility issues and we really run into a lot of problems. But if you want to know more about Telco One, please drop us a note. Please get in touch with your team at CloudSense and your local team, and they'll be able to help you with that. Thank you. Ed, back to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Vish, for that great presentation. We have about 10 minutes to go. So let's get to some questions that have come through. So one here. What are your thoughts on using other mechanisms to send quotes, like SMS or other messaging services, for example?
They're okay, depending on the business that you're in, and depending on, I guess, the type of telco you are and how you're working through things. Yes, you can use them. So we have had some where people would like to use other messaging services, especially for quick quote. So whether that's a chatbot or different types of business chat functions, yes, you can use them, but it comes down to what does your business really want to do and how do you want to represent your quotes going forward, and what are the types you want to look at with those.
All right, thanks. Another one here. So my company struggles with quote versions. As the customer changes their mind or the solution changes, we need to update and send them a new one each time. Can you give some tips on how to manage this better?
Yeah, so depending on, I guess, your technology you're using, so I would recommend that you use some sort of technology to manage your quotes so you can keep a history and a track of them. If you're using, still PowerPoint and those things, a filing mechanism or a central repository within a CRM would be my recommendation. But naturally, with CloudSense, we actually support that for you. So we will keep the history of all those quotes and when they've been used and when they've been sent to the customer and how they've been, if they've been converted into orders or not. So that level of history is kept within the platform. In terms of your business side of things, you do need to be considerate, especially if you're still in a manual phase, that the offers that you're putting out in the market, that you do keep some level of automation of how you actually end those offers and ensure those quotes that are in the market are ended as well and notifications are given to the customer. When versioning those, look at your filing mechanisms and ensure that you keep a track and use receipts to make sure that you are keeping those in order as well.
Okay, great. Right, so on address management, does CloudSense actually perform service qualification or not?
So CloudSense integrates with whatever your service qualification management or your service qualification tools are. So within Telco One, we've built a framework which connects to, provides you that framework to provide us the data. So we will send down basically saying, here are the addresses and the parameters that that particular service may require. And then when it's sent backwards, we then allow that, we have that framework ready for us to ingest. And from a CloudSense perspective, then we can present that in any way that's needed on the screen. So within our platform, depending on how you'd like it configured for our domestic connectivity, we can automatically filter them to say particular addresses and what technology and what bandwidths are available. So we filter the catalog for you in that, or we just simply present the addresses for you and we present what is available at each site. And then you can use the catalog to pick what products you would like. We support both ways. And the reason for that is some customers may like to do a fiber build, and we then do allow for that third-party quoting or that third-party build components to go with it as well.
Okay, great. Another one, our customers are also expecting a proposal of a network solution with different combinations of speeds and contract terms. What is your perspective on this?
So it's a common one. It's a common one that I face into pretty much every other day when we start talking about networks. I don't think any customer is going to go away from this anytime soon. They've got different sites and they've got different requirements in terms of how they want things to run. Again, using technology can simplify this a lot easier. If you're not using technology, then it's about your processes within your commercial team to make sure that you can have this available within whatever contract template or quoting template you're using. If we were talking about the CloudSense side of things, we can support this within your configurations. So as you are configuring that particular network for that particular customer's quote, you can change the contract terms in terms of contract end dates. If it's 24 months, 36, 48, 60, each network access or link can have a different end date, and that'll be supported downstream working with the contract lifecycle management tool. But it also will render the pricing changes and whatever promotional changes you may have on discounts, the zones, etc., to go with it as well. It's something we do have a lot of experience with, especially on automating those nuances, especially with network infrastructure quotes. because there's so many intricacies around the commercial changes. And in managing that process downstream, it's also about ensuring that when you look at that process for your commercial teams, is ensuring they have clean line of sight of exactly the deal that you're looking at. One of the common challenges that I found in previous lives is when working in Excel, you would have a particular, let's call it a workbook with 50 sites in it. And to look at the commercials, because you've got some sites at 24 months, others at 60, the commercials, obviously with the CapEx and OpEx continually change. The commercial team used to struggle in terms of getting me the right deal for that right fit for that particular customer. By doing this in a very simplistic way and then providing that level of transparency to your commercial team and then also to your product team who are probably signing off on that configuration, their capital expenditure model to go with it, that the technology helps you provide that flexibility and visibility and overall makes that process end-to-end far more easier for you, the customer, and also your internal stakeholders that do need to look at this properly.
Yeah, great, thank you. I'm guessing this might be the last question, interesting one. So we understand that the quote process needs to be fast, but we're often faced with customers that just want a price to bench against our competitors. Any tips for managing this?
So this is a risk that I guess every industry faces into. Telco is not unique to it, where you would often get a phone call to say, or even an email or chat these days to say, hey, need a quote for iPhones on this plan, what deal can you get me? And generally my commentary to most people is a quick quote's probably your most standard quote you'd provide them if you don't know them. If there's a relationship inside that, my advice has always been try and dig down in terms of when is their buying cycle, how are they going through, who do I need to also send this quote to if you kind of feel like they're the ones not signing off on, to really understand that. The other is also potentially putting a really, really quick close date on it. So instead of putting 30 days on it, maybe put a week on it instead. The risk around just being benched is extremely common, especially if you don't know the person or you haven't really built a relationship over time. It's a difficult one, but we are in a world where they do expect quotes to come quickly. The best thing you can do is provide that quote quickly, but also manage it tightly with them in terms of ensuring that follow-ups are in place, and then keeping a record of that in the system just to ensure that it doesn't become a pattern that that particular company just keeps coming to you to get a better price to bring down someone else.
Okay, so we've come to the end of our time. So I want to thank all the attendees. I hope you found this interesting and useful. Of course, you can always contact us if you want to learn more at info@cloudsense.com. I also want to remind you that this is actually the first in a series. So we've done quoting this week. This time next week, we'll be looking into communication, and then the week after, delivery. So same time each week for the next couple of weeks. We hope to see you there. We'll also be sending out a quick survey to all of you, asking questions about other areas of the business that you might be hitting speed bumps. Be interesting to hear your perspectives on that. But otherwise, I want to thank everyone once again and wish you all a pleasant day. Thank you.